Hello, and welcome back to English Podcast Live. I'm Alex.
And I'm Jamie. Today we're going somewhere a little deep, and I want to say up front, this is a topic we've both thought a lot about before recording.
We're talking about toxic relationships, and I want to be clear from the very beginning, this isn't just about romantic relationships. We're talking about any close relationship. A romantic partner, yes, but also a close friend, a family member, a colleague you spend most of your day with.
Because I think that's where a lot of people get confused. They hear toxic relationship and they picture dramatic arguments, obvious cruelty, a clearly terrible situation. And sometimes it is like that. But often, and this is the part that's harder to talk about, often it's much quieter.
It's a pattern of small things that individually seem manageable, even explainable, but together create an environment where you are consistently made to feel less than you are.
You feel tired around this person. You feel like you're always slightly wrong. You feel like you have to manage yourself very carefully, what you say, how you say it, what you react to, in order to keep the peace.
And you can live inside that pattern for months or years without fully recognizing it, because it crept up slowly, because you normalized it, because you love the person, and love makes us want to find explanations.
So today we're going to talk about the signs, and we're going to go deep on each one. We're going to talk about why we stay when we recognize these patterns. We're going to talk about toxic friendships and family, which are often harder to name than toxic romantic relationships. And we're going to talk about how to start protecting yourself.
This is a gentle episode. We're not here to tell you what to do. We're here to help you see more clearly.
Let's start with the signs.
Sign 1, and I'd call this the most fundamental signal of all. You consistently feel worse about yourself after spending time with this person.
Not every time, not necessarily, but as a pattern, as the norm. After you've seen them, had a phone call with them, exchanged messages with them, you feel smaller, more uncertain about yourself, less capable, less worthy.
Contrast this with what healthy relationships tend to feel like. After time with someone who genuinely cares about you, you might feel energized, seen, understood. Even if the conversation was hard, even if you discussed something difficult, there's a sense of having been held, not diminished.
The question to ask yourself is, what is my general emotional state after I interact with this person? Not on the occasional bad day, not during a fight, as the default pattern.
And I want to be nuanced here, because some relationships are genuinely hard for valid reasons. Caring for an ill parent is exhausting. Working through a serious conflict with a close friend is draining. Those feelings of exhaustion don't necessarily indicate toxicity.
The difference is, in healthy, hard relationships, the difficulty comes from the circumstances, not from the other person's behavior toward you. In a toxic relationship, the drain comes from how they treat you, the criticism, the dismissal, the unpredictability, the demand to constantly perform.
If you're unsure which category you're in, try this. Think about the last 5 interactions with this person. How did you feel after each one? If the answer is consistently some version of bad about myself, that's the signal.
Sign 2. Your feelings are regularly minimized or dismissed. This one is particularly insidious because it happens through language that sounds almost reasonable.
You're too sensitive. You're overreacting. It was just a joke. Can't you take a joke? I don't know why you're making such a big deal out of this. You always do this. Other people would be fine with what I said.
Each of these phrases does the same thing. It relocates the problem. The problem is no longer what was said or done. The problem is now your reaction to it, your sensitivity, your inability to handle normal things.
And over time, this erodes something very fundamental, your trust in your own perception. You start to genuinely wonder, am I too sensitive? Am I overreacting? Maybe it wasn't that bad. Maybe I'm the problem.
This is sometimes called gaslighting, when someone consistently makes you question your own experience of reality. And it doesn't have to be intentional to be damaging. Some people do it without any awareness that they're doing it, because they themselves learned this pattern from someone who did it to them.
But regardless of the intention, the effect is the same. You stop trusting yourself. Your internal compass, your sense of that hurt or that was unfair, gets overridden again and again until it stops working reliably.
A useful reality check. If you described what happened to a neutral third party, a therapist, a trusted friend who doesn't know the other person, would they think your reaction was reasonable? If yes, that's important information.
Another check. How do you feel in other relationships with other people? Do you feel too sensitive there too? Or does the sensitivity seem to appear specifically with this one person?
If you feel fine everywhere else and only feel too sensitive around this particular person, the issue is not your sensitivity.
Sign 3. A pattern of criticism that comes packaged as honesty, as help, as caring.
I'm just being honest with you. I only say this because I care about you. Someone has to tell you the truth. I'm the only one who's real with you.
These phrases position the person as your most loyal ally, the only one brave enough to tell you what you need to hear. And this framing can be very compelling, especially if you genuinely value honest feedback.
But genuine honesty in healthy relationships has a few consistent qualities. First, it's balanced. The person who tells you hard things also tells you when you've done something well. They notice your growth, not just your gaps. They celebrate your wins.
If the only direction the honesty flows is toward your faults, your inadequacies, your failures, it's not honesty. It's criticism wearing honesty's clothing.
Second quality of genuine honesty, it's delivered with care. There's a difference between, I noticed you seemed nervous in that presentation. I think practicing out loud more might help you, and you were clearly nervous in that presentation. You really need to work on your confidence. Both are honest. Only one is kind.
Third, honest feedback in healthy relationships is given when you need it, not whenever the other person feels like giving it. You're not a project they're constantly improving. You're a person they care about who happens to get honest input sometimes.
A pattern of frequent criticism, even when it's technically accurate, creates an environment where you always feel like you're falling short, where you're never quite right, where there's always something to be fixed. And living in that environment is exhausting and diminishing.
Notice also, does the honesty ever go the other way? When you offer honest feedback to them, how do they receive it? If they react very differently to criticism than they dish out, if they're very fragile about their own faults while freely pointing out yours, that asymmetry is itself significant.
Sign 4. You feel responsible for their emotional state.
This is one of the most subtle and most exhausting dynamics. It shows up as a constant low-level vigilance. You monitor their mood. You notice what kind of day they seem to be having before you say anything important. You pre-adjust your behavior, your tone, your requests based on how they seem to be feeling.
You walk on eggshells. That phrase, walk on eggshells, is so precisely right. You're moving carefully, slowly, trying not to step wrong, because stepping wrong has consequences.
And when something does go wrong, when they're upset, angry, withdrawn, you feel it as your fault, even when objectively it isn't. Or you immediately take on the task of managing their emotion, soothing them, making it better, apologizing even when you're not sure what you're apologizing for.
There's a concept in psychology called emotional labor. It refers to the work of managing feelings, your own and others. In healthy relationships, this work is roughly reciprocal. Both people attune to each other. Both people make adjustments. It goes both ways.
In a toxic dynamic, the emotional labor is profoundly unequal. One person does most or all of the managing, and it's always in the same direction. You manage them. They don't manage themselves, and they certainly don't manage you.
The result is a kind of chronic exhaustion that's hard to name because it doesn't come from anything visible. You haven't run a marathon, you haven't worked overtime, but you're depleted because emotional vigilance maintained over months and years is genuinely tiring.
A useful question. When you're having a hard day, when you're upset, stressed, or struggling, does this person attune to you? Do they notice? Do they ask? Do they adjust their behavior for you the way you adjust yours for them?
If the answer is rarely or never, that asymmetry is worth sitting with.
Sign 5. Your needs, your preferences, your time, your feelings are consistently less important than theirs.
This is about the structure of the relationship, how decisions get made, whose comfort takes priority, whose schedule organizes the others, whose feelings receive more attention and care.
In healthy relationships, this balance shifts. Sometimes your needs come first, sometimes theirs do. Over time, it roughly evens out. Not perfectly, life isn't perfect, but there's a sense of mutual consideration.
In a lopsided relationship, it's always the same direction. You accommodate, you adjust, you go where they want to go, eat what they want to eat, see the films they want to see, cancel plans when it suits them, and when you occasionally ask for something, it becomes a negotiation, or worse, a source of tension.
What makes this particularly confusing is that the person may genuinely not see the imbalance. They experience the relationship as normal. Their needs are just needs, naturally important, naturally prioritized, and your needs somehow are asking for something extra.
And when you raise it, when you say, I feel like my needs don't get considered, it sometimes gets turned around. Suddenly, you're being needy, you're being selfish, you're never satisfied. The observation becomes the problem, rather than the pattern it was pointing to.
This conversational move, where your legitimate observation gets reframed as a character flaw, is worth paying close attention to, because it's a sign that the relationship can't hold honest feedback about itself. And a relationship that can't survive honest conversation is fragile in a particular way.
Sign 6. They use guilt as a control mechanism.
Guilt trips are a specific kind of communication. They're different from genuine expressions of hurt. When you cancel our plans, I feel let down. That's expressing genuine hurt. It's an honest communication of a feeling.
A guilt trip sounds like, after everything I've done for you, I can't believe you do this. Fine, I guess I'm just not important to you. I would never have done this to you. You always do this. You always put yourself first.
Notice what each of these does. They don't describe a specific hurt. They make a global claim about your character, your loyalty, your worth as a person. They're designed not to communicate a feeling, but to produce one, specifically to make you feel bad enough to comply.
Genuine hurt, expressed honestly, leaves room for conversation. I felt let down when you canceled. Can be responded to. You can explain, apologize, problem solve. A guilt trip doesn't leave that room. It's an ending, not an opening.
Sign 8, and this one might be the clearest signal of all. You are afraid to be honest with them.
You censor yourself before speaking. You rehearse what you're going to say. You soften things several times before saying them, and then sometimes decide not to say them at all. There are topics you simply don't bring up, because you've learned, through experience, that bringing them up doesn't go well.
And doesn't go well can mean many things. It might mean they get very angry. It might mean they get very upset and you end up comforting them. It might mean they dismiss what you said entirely. It might mean the conversation gets turned around until you're defending yourself rather than discussing the original concern.
In a healthy relationship, you should be able to say, "I'm upset about something. I felt hurt by what you said. I need to talk about something that's been bothering me." And those statements should open a conversation, not trigger a crisis, not require days of management, not end with you apologizing for having raised it.
If you find yourself thinking, "I'd love to tell them this, but I know how they'll react," and the expected reaction is not calm, thoughtful engagement, but something you need to brace yourself for, that's important information about the safety of the relationship.
Because a relationship where honesty is too risky to practice is a relationship where you can only show up as a managed, edited version of yourself. And that's not intimacy. That's performance.
Now, the most important question. If these signs are there, why do people stay? Because people outside often don't understand this. Why didn't you just leave?
The question misunderstands how these relationships work. Let's go through the real reasons.
Reason 1. Intermittent reinforcement. Most toxic relationships are not terrible all the time. There are good days, good moments. The person can be warm, funny, generous, loving. The relationship has real value in it, alongside the harm.
And this combination, kindness and cruelty alternating unpredictably, actually makes the kindness more powerful, not less. In psychology, intermittent reinforcement is the most powerful driver of habitual behavior. It's the same mechanism that makes gambling addictive. The unpredictability of the reward keeps you hooked.
So when someone is sometimes wonderful and sometimes harmful, you don't think this relationship is harmful. You think, I just need to get back to the good version of them. You keep trying because you know the good version is real.
Reason 2, the gradual escalation. The relationship didn't start like this. Early on, things were different, or they seemed different. The difficult behaviors escalated slowly over time, so that each individual step seemed manageable. By the time the pattern is fully established, it's normalized. It's just how things are.
Reason 3, eroded self-worth. After extended exposure to the dynamics we described, the criticism, the minimizing, the moving standard, your sense of your own worth gets genuinely damaged.
You start to believe that this is what you deserve, that you couldn't do better, that no one else would want you or tolerate your flaws.
This belief is often deliberately or unconsciously cultivated by the other person. A partner who makes you feel deeply flawed and then also expresses doubts about whether anyone else would put up with you is, whether consciously or not, making it harder for you to leave.
Reason 4, practical ties, especially in family relationships and workplace relationships. You can't simply leave a parent. You can't always leave a job. Some relationships require long, careful navigation rather than a clean exit. The solution is more complex than just walking away.
Reason 5. Love. Simple, genuine love. You love this person. You remember who they were or who they can be. You believe they're capable of better. And love is a real, powerful force that doesn't simply switch off when you recognize a problem.
None of these reasons make you weak or foolish. They make you human.
Let's specifically address friendships and family because these get less attention than romantic relationships and are often harder to name.
Friendships. The friend who is always available to receive support but rarely available to give it. Who calls you when they need to process something but doesn't pick up when you're the one struggling.
The friend who makes jokes at your expense in front of other people and then calls you sensitive when you react, who competes with you secretly while publicly performing support, who needs to be the most successful, the most interesting, the most central person in every shared space.
The friend who tells you your life choices are mistakes, who has an opinion about your relationship, your career, your appearance that you didn't ask for, who frames this as honesty but never seems to notice or celebrate anything you do well.
Friendships are harder to leave than romantic relationships in some ways because there are no cultural scripts for it. We know how to break up with a romantic partner. There's language for it. There's a framework. But ending a friendship, there's no established vocabulary, and the grief is often minimized by others because it was just a friend.
But friendship loss is real grief. And a friendship that consistently makes you feel worse about yourself is worth examining seriously, even if it's been a long friendship. Duration alone doesn't justify ongoing harm.
Family is the hardest because there are powerful cultural, moral, and sometimes religious scripts that say family is sacred, you owe them loyalty, you keep the peace, you forgive, you maintain the relationship regardless.
And these values are not wrong in themselves. Family connection is genuinely important. Forgiveness is a healing thing. But these values can be, and often are, weaponized to keep people in relationships that harm them.
But their family is not a complete moral argument for tolerating mistreatment. Being related to someone does not give them unlimited access to your emotional, mental, or physical resources.
You can love a family member and still limit contact. You can love a parent and still decide there are topics you won't discuss with them. You can love a sibling and still establish that certain behaviors are not acceptable when you're together.
These are not acts of cruelty or disloyalty. They are acts of self-preservation. And in many cases, they're the thing that makes it possible to stay in relationship with that family member at all. Because without those limits, the relationship becomes impossible.
You are allowed to love someone from a distance.
We want to close with something practical. If anything we've talked about today resonates, what can you actually do?
First, trust your feelings, not your explanations of them, not the rationalizations you've developed, the feelings themselves. If you consistently feel bad around someone, that is information. It matters. You don't need to justify it to anyone, including yourself.
Second, Name it to yourself, even privately, even in a journal. This relationship makes me feel small. I feel like I'm not allowed to have needs here. I'm afraid to say what I think. Naming something gives you a handle on it. You can't change what you can't see.
Third, talk to someone outside the relationship, a therapist, a counselor, a trusted friend who can offer perspective. Toxic relationships distort your perception over time. You need outside input to reality check what you're experiencing.
Fourth, start small. You don't have to transform everything immediately. One small boundary, one time of not immediately apologizing when you've done nothing wrong, one moment of saying, that doesn't work for me, and holding it.
Small acts of self-respect matter. They rebuild your sense of your own worth, and they show you, experientially, not just intellectually, that you can hold a line and the world doesn't end.
And finally, be patient with yourself. Recognizing a pattern is the beginning, not the end. The relationship may not change immediately. You may not leave immediately, even if leaving is right. Change in these situations is usually gradual, and that's okay.
You don't have to have it all figured out today. Seeing more clearly is already enough for now.
Thank you for being here today. This was a vulnerable topic, and we know it might have brought up some things for some of you.
If it did, that's okay. That's the episode doing what it's supposed to do. Sit with it. Talk to someone. Take care of yourselves.
Subscribe to English Podcasts Live for new episodes every week. And if this episode helped you, share it with someone who might need to hear it.
See you next week. Take care, everyone. Bye.
Bye.